Congrats to my premium Discord members who followed along with my earnings play for Fulgent, where I estimated $6 earnings per share and I was pretty much spot on, and now the stock is up by 15% today. What's next for Fulgent? Is it too late to buy? Let's talk about it. Hi y'all, my name is Greg and I make videos about the stock market and options trading. Today we're going to be talking all about Fulgent's earnings report. So first we're going to go over the numbers, then we're going to go over their expectations for 2021, which is going to be huge. And finally, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you my expectations for Fulgent. You'll definitely want to stick around for that because I have a $500 price target for the stock and I'll give my reasoning behind it. But before we get into it, if you enjoy this type of video where I deep dive into these different stocks, make sure to leave a like down below and subscribe if you're new to the channel. With that out of the way, let's get into the earnings. For Q4 2020, Fulgent posted revenue of $295 million, and this made their last earnings report look like child's play. In Q3 2020, they only posted $101 million in revenue, so this is almost a threefold increase. And if you watched my last video, I called this out almost perfectly, and this was my reasoning behind it.
Just looking at the daily case chart from Google, it looks like there was probably 3 or maybe even 4 times as many cases in October through December than there were from July through August. So possibly this means that Fulgent might experience more than 4x growth in their revenue this quarter. If that's the case, I wouldn't expect their overall earnings to increase by 4x since they probably had to increase their operating expenses. But more realistically, I'm expecting an earnings per share somewhere between $4 to $6, which is a 2 to 3x growth quarter over quarter.
And not only was I right about their revenue, I was also right about their earnings per share. I had a top estimate of $6 EPS, and they reported $6.16, so they even beat my estimate by a little bit. Honestly, I'm still blown away by their earnings this quarter and just how close I was to the mark. And not to toot my own horn or anything, but Wall Street was way off on this, estimating earnings per share of $4.46. But as somebody who follows this company closely, I do have some concerns whenever it comes to their earnings report, which they actually addressed. Because their revenue right now is heavily dependent on COVID testing, I was worried throughout the rest of the year, as more vaccines get pushed out, their revenue would slump. But we learned on their earnings report that they actually have software as a service for vaccines as well. That's something that I didn't know before, and I think this is going to help them out a lot over the next couple of quarters as vaccines are distributed. On top of that, Fulgent's non-COVID revenue increased by 43% year over year, which is a far stretch from their 3,400% total, but over 40% is still really good. And with all the revenue that they're making through COVID right now, they might be able to reinvest this into making even more money. They built up an arsenal of assets from just $87 million in 2019 to $700 million for 2020. $87 million of this comes from cash, and while I'd like to see a whole lot more, I don't think this is going to be a problem with the revenue that they're going to be making for 2021. Fulgent expects overall revenue of $800 million this year, which is huge. That's a 90% increase year over year from 2020. Now, it's important to keep in mind that these are only estimates, they're not promises. They could do a lot worse, or I think they could do even better. We'll talk about that later though. Of the $800 million in expected revenue for 2021, they expect $70 million of this to come from their next generation sequencing platform. Again, I think they're underestimating the potential of NGS considering how diverse this technology is and how many ways they use it. And for the last part of their 2021 estimates, Fulgent expects GAAP income or an earnings per share of $12. This quarter alone, they did over a $6 earnings per share, so if every quarter was like this one, their earnings per share for the entire year would be $24. But again, right now, their revenue is heavily dependent on their COVID services, and that's expected to slow down in the second half of 2021. But the first half of 2021 is actually supposed to be even better. In Q1 2021, Fulgent expects revenue of at least $325 million. Now, this at least statement gives me a whole lot of optimism for Q1 earnings, and considering we're already in March, they probably know where their sales are gonna be. I think again, this company is sandbagging their numbers, so let me get into my expectations. Right now, Fulgent is estimating $325 million in revenue for Q1 2021, and this company continues to underestimate themselves. In their third quarter earnings report, they expected in Q4 that they would have just $110 million in revenue. Well, it turns out they actually did $295 million. Now, realistically, I can't expect another threefold gain in the revenue for this quarter, but I do believe they can beat their $325 million estimate by about 5 to 10%. This will put their revenue at around $340 million to $360 million is my top estimate for Q1 2021. If they're able to scale their earnings by the same 5 to 10% that I'm expecting for their revenue, we should see an EPS of $6.50 or $6.75 for Q1 2021. And my expectations for the entire year of 2021 are a whole lot higher. Right now, their estimates are $800 million of revenue in 2021 and a total earnings per share of $12. If they do $350 million in revenue like I'm expecting for Q1 2021, this will put them at 43% of their goal. Let's say in Q2, they slow down a bit and they only see about 80% of the revenue in Q2 versus Q1. This would put their Q2 revenue at $280 million. If we add up our Q1 revenue estimate and our Q2 revenue estimate, that gives us $630 million in revenue for the first half. And let's say in the second half, their revenue really slumps by around 50%, and they aren't making nearly as much money on their COVID services. If we take our $630 million revenue estimate for the first half of 2021 and multiply that by 150%, this gives us a total year revenue estimate of $945 million. Their estimate was $800 million, and honestly, I might even be underestimating them, considering what was said in their earnings call.
One other exciting announcement, which Ming briefly mentioned, is that Fulgent was selected by the Department of Homeland Security as one of 4 labs chosen for a $2 billion, 5-year indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract for COVID-19 testing. This is the largest contract we have been awarded to date. We believe with our industry-leading turnaround time, capacity, and delivery platforms, we have the ability to take on a meaningful portion of this contract and help our country's first responders stay healthy and safe.
So they were selected as 1 in 4 to win a government contract for COVID testing. And you might have heard about this already in the stimulus talks, but the government is looking to add $2 billion more in funding for COVID. This seems like a no-brainer to me, and if they get part of this $2 billion in funding from the government, this is going to add $100 million more in revenue for each year. Since this is $2 billion, if we divide that by 4, if there's 4 winners, that gives us $500 million in revenue for the next 5 years, and if we divide that by 5, we get $100 million in extra revenue for each year. That's only if this bill gets passed and if Fulgent gets a piece of this pie. It's not guaranteed. Regardless though, even without this contract, I'm expecting the revenue to be $950 million for this year, if not higher than $1 billion. And this is where things really start to get crazy. With their $800 million revenue estimate for 2021, this puts my price target for the stock at $510. Now this is a bit of a stretch, this is my extreme bull case, but follow along with me. If we compare Invitae to Fulgent, they're basically offering the same services. Last I checked, Invitae was trading at a 15 times forward price to sales ratio with a market cap of $7 billion and estimated revenue for 2021 of $450 million. Fulgent, on the other hand, is only trading at a 2.2 times forward price to sales ratio with a $2 billion market cap and $800 million of expected revenue for 2021. If we give Fulgent the same 15 times forward price to sales ratio as Invitae, this will put their market cap at $14 billion, and this will put their stock at $510. My last price target for the stock was $400, so I've increased this by over $100, and I've been buying more like crazy recently as they've been going down. Now this is super optimistic, this is my extreme bull case, but I think by the end of the year they could be trading at around $510. I think more realistically though, this is a 5-year price target. In the short term though, I think that the stock could continue to trend down like they have over the past month, with the short interest growing and pushing the price down, as well as the overall growth market getting hit really hard. Another issue I think the stock faces is their PR team not really catering to your average investor like you and me. Yesterday I tuned into their earnings call and I tried to ask a question, but I guess I just got skipped in the queue. And while I'm a little bit salty about this, I do understand they don't have a lot of time, but this could really limit their upside since not a lot of people know about this stock, but hopefully investors got a lot of optimism from their earnings report. I know I definitely did. and I'm looking to add even more shares to their stock as they continue to go down. Hopefully I'll have about 50 shares of Fulgent by the end of the stock market crash, and if we can reach my $510 price target by the end of the year, that's going to be $25,000 in a single investment. That's even bigger than my Tesla position right now. That's how bullish I am on this stock. If you want to know the next time I buy the stock, which is probably going to be pretty soon, I post all of my trades over on my free Discord, and I'll let you know ahead of time if you're part of my premium Discord. I'll have both of these linked down in the pinned comment below. That's pretty much all I got for you on Fulgent's earnings today. And before I go, I want to say thank you to all my patrons for their support. And if you want to join my patron list, I'll have a link down in the description below where you'll get access to live Q&A and trading sessions each week, price analyses for the stocks that I'm watching, and also I'll help you with some price analysis on the stocks you're interested in. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of this video. And as always, remember to stay positive, stay green. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye guys.